Southern Oregon is filled with a variety of wildlife as well as astonishing geographical formations. Throughout our visit, we encountered several examples of flora and fauna at locations such as Crater Lake and the Rogue River. However, the increased human presence over the past few centuries has been detrimental to the natural ecosystems. In this video, we explored a diverse plant and animal species which reside in Southern Oregon, as well as some of the problems affecting the environment.
The caldera of Crater Lake, I'll ask you that question. Was it, since we're standing on a volcano, I'll give you a hint.
I'm assuming that the volcano kind of collapsed on itself.
Yeah. You guys can say it with me. The mountain grew.
Yeah.
Go ahead and say it with me.
Mountain grew.
The mountain blew.
Mountain blew.
The mountain fell.
Mountain fell.
Crater Lake filled.
Crater Lake filled.
So there was a tremendous eruption here that happened 7,700 years ago to explode pumice and ash up into the sky. Scientists say that some of that pumice ended up in Canada because the eruption was so giant. So if you live in Manitoba, you can take a shovel and compare the dirt a few feet down with the same dirt right here on the other side of the wall. It's identically the same stuff. A few hundred years later, about 4 centuries later, they say, the eruption of Wizard Island took place as an aftershock eruption. So this is not the top of the old volcano. This is a subsequent aftershock eruption. And you can tell that the top of Wizard Island is kind of the leftovers of the end of the magma chamber because of that really dark andesite rock at the very top of it. Looks like a forest fire took place up there, but no, that's really exceptionally mineral heavy rock that was found at the bottom of the magma chamber, which erupted many centuries later. So what that means is that some of the lava flows at the very base of Wizard Island that are underwater formed while there was water while the lake water was in the lake. So that when the beginning of Wizard Island started to erupt, it probably exploded with eruptions because it caused instant steam explosions with the water in the caldera. I'm glad I wasn't here that day.
Southern Oregon is considered to have a mild climate with an average annual maximum temperature of 68 degrees and an average annual minimum of 40.9 degrees. As compared to more western and northern parts of the state, Southern Oregon receives a relatively low amount of rainfall, averaging 29.5 inches per year. Snowfall does occur, but not often and not in great amounts, an average of 2.3 inches per year. The enticing climate makes Southern Oregon prime for agriculture, and it has become an area primed with wineries and stone fruit orchards. Despite the mild winters, around July-August time, parts of Southern Oregon get scorching hot, with low-altitude inland areas such as Medford and Ashland seeing 100-plus degree temperatures and wildfires nearly each summer.
Last decade or two has been 43 feet. So this year's a dry year, and especially in Southern Oregon. I live in Southern Oregon when I'm not a park ranger here, and I'm really concerned that it's going to be a drought condition for quite some time. And I think the climate of the earth is changing faster than some people can understand. And by understanding our place in perhaps a carbon footprint or our effects on the climate, that can influence the effects here at the park as well.
The flora of Southern Oregon is very diverse. The flora found depends on the altitude of the surrounding areas. The higher up you are, you'll find Shasta red fir, but if you go lower in altitude, you'll find a more diverse selection of deciduous trees, broadleaf evergreens, and many other plants. You'll find ponderosa pine, Douglas fir, madrone, Jeffrey pine, manzanita, and oak spread all through southern all through the Southern Oregon area. A mass selection of flowers can be found all over Southern Oregon, and they're there all year round, though they tend to be more abundant during the springtime, like many other places. You'll find white, yellow, and purple irises, and lilies and primrose. In Southern Oregon, you'll find black-tailed deer, bald eagles, and the American black bear, the great blue heron, stellar jays, just to name a few. If you're lucky, you'll see a golden eagle or river otters, but those are quite rare. You'll also find Canada geese, mallards, green herons, ospreys, kingfishers, catfish, and yellow perch, but those are just a few examples. Southern Oregon is currently facing wildfires, increased temperatures, and water shortages. The greenhouse gas emissions produced by humans is only propelling climate change and worsening the issues they have yet to face. Southern Oregon has had more frequent periods of droughts than there ever has been historically, and because of the increasing temperature, plants and animals living in higher elevations have been affected as they are used to cooler temperatures. And with the addition of mining and logging, the homes of many plants and animals, including northern spotted owls and Brewer spruce, have been destroyed or at risk. There have been certain areas that have been remained cool and have become home to many different species as they are moving to these cooler areas to escape the increased temperatures in their homes. And migratory birds have also been affected by these changes of seasonality, and the amphibian population and turtles have been affected as they are unable to disperse into new areas because of the drought. Southern Oregon's biodiversity has been affected as climate change accelerates, and some species have been able to survive, like black bears and raccoons, but many species have not been able to survive these increasing temperatures. Southern Oregon's forests are also very at risk because of the wildfires and mining and logging. But invasive and non-native species have been benefiting from these and their populations have only begun to rise with the changing temperatures.
Unlike most lakes, Crater Lake lacks an inlet river, and instead has its water replenished by rain and snowfall. This means that sediment cannot enter and build up in the lake. Typically, sediment would flow in from rivers and collect at the bottom of a lake, decreasing its depth. Sediment also stirs up in water and clouds it. Since Crater Lake does not have sediment deposited, it has a depth of 1,943 feet, making it the deepest lake in the United States and the 9th deepest in the world. The lack of sediment also gives it some of the clearest waters in the world, with visibility reaching 100 feet and sunlight penetrating 400 feet into the lake. Unlike other lakes near volcanoes, which can have extremely acidic pHs reaching 1.8, Crater Lake maintains a relatively neutral pH between 7 and 8. This is due to the lack of volcanic activity, which can release bromine, fluorine, and chlorine in the form of hydrogen halides, as well as sulfur dioxide and hydrogen sulfide, which are all acidic compounds. Crater Lake's mild pH allows aquatic life to live in the lake, as well as providing a water source for many of the land animals and plants. Without this neutral pH, the lake would not be able to support the lush forest ecosystem on its banks. Crater Lake's unique geography leads to an isolated ecosystem in both the lake and on Wizard Island. Since Crater Lake is not connected to any other body of water, the marine life in it becomes geographically isolated, only needing to survive in the ecosystem of the lake. This leads to species found nowhere else, like the Mazama newt, a type of rough-skinned newt. Due to the isolated habitat and lack of predators, the Mazama newt was able to thrive so successfully to the point of no longer requiring toxicity for defense. However, geographical isolation makes native species extremely vulnerable to invasive ones. In 1915, crayfish were introduced into the lake, destroying the Mazama newt's stable position in the ecosystem. Crayfish eat snails, insects, and larvae, all food that the Mazama newt also consumes, as well as invading their habitat. Although Wizard Island is isolated, many of the same trees and small animals inhabit both it and the mainland. It is thought that birds carried and dropped seeds onto the island, and many of the smaller animals such as squirrels and chipmunks were transported through boat ships to the island. Since all of these species are native to Crater Lake, issues on Wizard Island have been minor. However, the animals carried on the boats have had much less time to evolve differently to their mainland counterparts, and could be susceptible to an invasive species thousands of years from now.
In southern Oregon, there's a town called Port Orford, whose economy was essentially built upon the logging industry. Due to the homogeneous industry, as the logging industry declined and moved out of the area, the economy was left to deal with the gap, leading to an unemployment rate much higher than the national average and a mass exodus of people out of the town. These towns in southern Oregon are not intertwined enough for manufacturing or industrial systems, and tourism is not particularly profitable, which had been sustaining the area for a while, especially in an area like Port Orford, which is populated mostly by families. Recently, Port Orford has been chosen by the Oregon Sustainable Fisheries and Wildlife Committee to be a model for a new kind of economy, the blue economy. Port Orford, along with some other coastal and surrounding towns of southern Oregon, have turned to sustainable fisheries as a new, profitable, environmentally friendly way of sustaining themselves. Fisheries are incredibly more profitable than tourism, with The Economist reporting that the average annual income of an individual in the tourism sector in the area is $20,000 a year, as compared to $70,000 a year for fishing. However, instead of just using this economy for individual gain, the emerging blue economy in southern Oregon is focused on sharing knowledge and resources, rather than competing for them. A key feature of the blue economy in Port Orford is a private-public sector partnership that seeks to build a fish retrieval system that pumps seawater directly from the ocean into a catch facility at a speed of 500 gallons per minute. This means that the fish caught will be caught live and can produce much greater market value, as they can be sold to the distributors live, who will likely transport the fish to areas such as Portland, Seattle, and the Bay Area. The key to this fishery, however, and others like it, is a clean, healthy ocean. The fish from this area are so valuable because they feed and grow in waters far less polluted than most other parts of the United States. The fishery project in the town of Port Orford has been especially focused on equity and have made it a priority to include the native tribes of the area in the new project. The native tribe of the area has been contracted by the Port Orford project to carry out water quality testing to ensure the fish being harvested are those from clean waters, as well as to ensure that the fishery itself is not polluting the water. Farmers as far as Texas rely on the bycatch of salmon fishing off the southern Oregon coast as fertilizer, so the happenings of rural coastal towns of southern Oregon have impacts that reverberate across the nation. Port Orford is an example of the tremendous impacts small communities can have in changing the course of how the commercial sector affects the environment, and is a model for economies throughout the country.
Yeah, so I think first we were just wondering, what is it about the park that makes you like to come here?
Well, number one, all the trees.
All the greenery.
And it's really encouraging to me that so many people agree that we want to have beautiful places. And I think that more of that in the world is going to contribute to more inner peace.
So have all the fauna and flora always been here, or is it kind of newer? Or?
Well, I think I'm not sure. I think that probably they used indigenous trees and plants here, I'm assuming. I'm positive a lot of it's been arranged in a beautiful way, though.
How do you think the art kind of helps you with your music and kind of inspires you? Is there a reason you like to come play music in the park?
Yeah. I'm somehow it's all connected that all the people you see walking around are pretty happy to talk with you, smile at you, make eye contact with you. That's inspiring for me. And for the music, I don't feel like there's the crusty outer shell that can happen from the troubles and problems of life with the people here. I feel like it's open, non-judgmental.